Just whistle while you work. Whistle loud and long. Do your best, take a rest, and sing yourself a song. Okay, that's the plan. Although worth noting that only one of the 7 dwarfs was happy. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On my weekly podcast, topics, discussions, stories from our lives.
Season 10, Chapter 2.
Unhappy at
work.
70% of the workforce say they are unhappy at their job. About the same amount say that the job is just a means to make money. 3/4 of all workers, say they will in some way look for a new job in the next year. This is across all categories. Further, job satisfaction has been on a steady decline for many years. What do we do? Occasionally, someone cuts through the din of reports, ideas, and info clutter with solutions that make sense. For me, that person has been Bruce Feiler. I may just put him on my personal council of advisors. See my podcast, Later That Same Life, episode 81, called Council of Advisors. My council of advisors is like my own sports fantasy team, only for the mind. I'm going to add Bruce Feiler. I've only recently become aware of his work. His expertise through 7 bestsellers is helping people through life's transitions. What I like the most is that he does not do this from an ivory tower of data. No, he crisscrosses the country talking to people and getting their thoughts and stories directly. Then from that, he gleans solutions. His latest book is called The Search: Finding Meaningful Work in a Post-Career World. Now, I don't want to just regurgitate Feiler's work. You can find him all over YouTube if you want. But I do want to cover some of his key points. New ways of thinking about jobs and work. Because, hey, we are unhappy at work. It's a means without a meaning. I can't get no satisfaction. And that is just no way to spend at least 1/3 of our lives. Like I said, only one of the 7 dwarfs was happy, and that's an even lower percentage than the average workplace. The others were grumpy and dopey or sleep deprived. One was dealing with self-esteem issues. The other battling allergies, no doubt caused by job stress. Things were so bad at that workplace, they even had a doctor directly on staff to deal with it all. A lot of our attitudes about work shifted during COVID. Jobs that many of us didn't necessarily place high on the social strata, bus driver, cashier, became our new heroes. Conversely, many of the quote-unquote important jobs were deemed non-essential. Work from home became a thing. Hey pal, working remotely or remotely working? Today in America, 100 million people work remotely, at least in some capacity. That's 2/3 of their workforce. As pandemic fears ebbed, there were calls to get back to the office. CEOs of major corporations, I guess, grew tired of not being able to look out over their fiefdoms and actually witness their serfs hard at work. Did you know that most recently Zoom asked their employees to start showing up in person? Zoom, the video conferencing company that would likely not even exist if it wasn't for people working from home, is saying, get back to the office. Well, by the way, they said back to the office at least 2 days a week. That seems to be about the best companies can hope for. Come back to the office 2-3 days a week. We call that the hybrid model. Oh, sure, I know some employees actually missed the office, but for the most part, even coming back part-time, workers are balking at it. Hey, I like working from home. I set up an office. I ordered stuff from Wayfair and Amazon. I only had to dress properly from the waist up. I got all my work done and more. Now you're asking me to revive the commute? Restock my work clothes closet? Drink office coffee? Ugh, no thanks. We had the Great Resignation and quiet quitting. And note that these two initiatives were employee trends. The working class trying to wrench control of their lives. Whether a virus forced this reevaluation upon us or not doesn't matter, because for about 2/3 of the workforce, they figured out a better way. It's the bosses that want their old lives back, not the workers. Workers are saying, hey, it's time I acted my wage. There is also this misconception out there that the newer generations, mostly millennials, don't want to work. Millennials get a mostly undeserved bad rap on a lot of things, but I think they do want to work. In general, the new generations are just like their parents. They want to work. What they don't want is their parents' workplace. This is where Bruce Feiler comes in. In my opinion, Bruce Feiler is not upsetting the apple cart. The apple cart has already been upset. What Feiler is coming on to say, here's how it got upset, and don't worry, we can still make apple pie and applesauce. Yeah, I may have to cut that lame metaphor from the final mix here. Feiler has this thing that I think really rings true, and it's called the 3 lies of work. Lies. Trump has over 30,000. Work only has about 3, apparently.
It's a collusion witch hunt.
3 main ones, and let me summarize. Lie number 1. You have a career. What is that even? Well, a career generally means you get a job early in a chosen field and you stay in that field throughout your entire work life. Feiler points out that career was only invented about 100 years ago as Americans fled to the big cities in search of work. The invention of the resume soon followed. It was a chronicle of the jobs within that career. Career has a snobbish connotation, doesn't it? You know, like you can have a career in law, but not in janitorial services. Career was invented by and for men. So it's biased, outdated, and linear, which is why most people don't think in terms of career anymore, especially younger people starting out. The thought of doing this one thing for the rest of your life is daunting. How do I know how I'm going to feel in a couple or 5 years? You know, they have a point. Work lie number 2. You have a path. Yes, a career path. Start here, follow this to get to there. Ooh, look at him. Wow, he's fast-tracked on his career. He's climbing the corporate ladder. Again, all linear models. Feiler's research data shows that, in fact, people go through around 20 what he calls work quakes in their work lives. So every couple of years, you start to question what you're doing, rethink your job life, maybe contemplate a big change. As the workplace becomes younger and more diverse, the work quake frequency will only be greater. Ergo, no path, no track, no ladder. Bruce Feiler's lies about work. Number 3, you have a job. It's the old notion. You get a job that you go to during the day, then you have your personal time at night and weekends. How much of the world today is still structured around that old schedule? It is why we have rush hours, prime time, weekend warriors, and Sunday church. Well, at least the Christians. The Monday through Friday 9 to 5 world hasn't really existed in its original form for decades now, has it? Many of us still think in terms of having a job. However, I like Feiler's idea that we have more than one job, possibly at least 4. We have the main job, punching in at the factory, if you will, but we also have a care job. We have to care for children, aging parents, someone, etc. Many of us also have a hope job, something we do that we hope will lead to something better. Oh, I'm writing a novel. I make pottery that I want to sell at the flea market, so forth. A hope job. Estimates are that up to 80% of us have a hope job. Filer's data shows almost 90% of us also have a ghost job. It's called a ghost job because it's like an invisible specter. It's something we have to do every day to get by. We're boosting our self-confidence. We're battling our insecurities. There's mental wellness. We're fighting discrimination. So much daily energy spent on these things that whether we realize it or not, it's a job. I'm working on myself. So all in all, that's a lot of jobs. It's a lot of work. No wonder we're exhausted. I'd venture to say that most of us have these 4 jobs: main, care, hope, and ghost. And up until now, which one of these do we have the least control of and are most unhappy in? Main. The main job. This shift in work ethic is really about people trying to have some say in the main job. We want more script input into that story. According to Filer, people have been trying to tell their work story their entire work life. And the ones who are happiest and most fulfilled on a main job, they don't just climb. Because climbing has been held synonymous with success. No, not just climb, but dig. Dig down. Become a personal archaeologist. Dig for and unearth the meaning you'd hoped you'd find on that main job. Filer, in his new book, and you can find this part online as well, has a quiz of 21 questions. 21 questions to find work you love. There's 21, but it breaks down into 5 categories you can ask yourself right now. Who is your who? What is your what? When is your when? Where is your where? And how is your how? You got to figure this out. Workers' attitudes are changing. The workplace has to change. I guess there will always be jobs that are just jobs. No one really wants to do them, but they must be done. We've done our best to try and minimize those. We've invented machines and robots to do some of them. But yeah, sometimes you still just need a person with a mop and a bucket. And the goal isn't necessarily eliminate all those types of uninspiring, mind-numbing jobs, but more to get rid of the uninspiring, mind-numbing job sites. If you feel your job itself isn't meaningful, maybe at least you're getting something meaningful from going into work every day. The overall experience. If the job is going to be the job, employers have to create a better workplace. Corporate has to stop thinking of workers as just the biggest number on the expenditure sheet. How many people have been downsized based on that kind of company philosophy? I know I was. My firing was not based on my performance. As a matter of fact, I had just gone through a couple of commendations. The decision to hustle me out of the door was made by an accountant based on a formula. The accountant likely had no idea who I was or what exactly I brought to the table. The human being didn't matter, the stats did. So now I'm down to 2 jobs, hope and ghost. Still a lot of work, I keep busy. So that's the 3 lies of work: career, path, and job. Look at the number of labor disputes we've had all over North America in the past year. People want fair compensation. They want decent benefits, a just workplace, and work-life balance. Work-life balance was actually a topic on the agenda of negotiations in labor management talks. Wow, work-life balance is not even a given. We have to negotiate for it. We also have this relatively new term called living wage. Think about that. Living wage, which also came from employees. Pay me enough to live on. And what's the government and corporate response to living wage? Minimum wage. What's the least I can get away with? That is sad, man. Workers on strike at a large metro grocery chain say they can't even afford to shop at the store they work in. And it's not like it's a high-end retailer. It isn't. It just pays shitty wages. Salary alone isn't about fulfillment on the job. Money doesn't buy happiness. Salary is more about food and shelter. My point is, we worker bees are negotiating it all right now, union or no union, in our own way. Compensation, fairness, meaning, and balance. This all needs to change, and young people entering the workforce today are definitely looking at some of these new ways of thinking. Our elected representatives seem kind of far behind on these concepts. Governments of every stripe at every level consistently tout the creation of jobs. We're going to create jobs. Every week, mindless news outlets report job numbers, unemployment rates, and lately how in some areas there seem to be more jobs than people applying for them. Is it that people don't want to work, or it's that particular job? Or is it all these terrible workplaces? Stop saying job as if a job itself is the only important thing. We don't choose anything in our lives that way. Get something just to have it. A house, a car, shoes, or a life partner. It must be the one for us. I'll work at a job, but the job has to work for me. Leadership. They want us back in the office, huh? Well, let me share this quote. Leadership is the ability to establish standards and manage a creative climate where people are self-motivated toward the mastery of long-term constructive goals in a participatory environment of mutual respect, compatible with personal values. Unquote. That is from a guy named Mike Vance, by the way, and I first read that about 40 years ago. And of all the people I've worked with and for over the years, maybe 2 actually understood it. Some of the dynamic of work and where you do it is changing. At least I hope so. And much of that is generated by younger workers. So I'd like to end with the worst piece of advice most young people get these days, certainly at every high school and college commencement address. Here's Scott Galloway at NYU. He's talking to a business class. Scott Galloway, by the way, already on my council of advisors.
The worst advice you will ever hear in this chair, and you'll hear it every week during your entire business school career, is the following. We invite 2 types of people to universities to speak, or business schools. Super interesting and successful people, or billionaires. For some reason, we've decided that billionaires just have insight around life. And they oftentimes finish their conversation with what I think is some of the worst advice given to young people. Follow your passion. What utter bullshit. This is your job. Your job is to find something you're good at, and then spend the thousands of hours and apply the grit and the perseverance and the sacrifice and the willingness to break through hard things to become great at it. Because once you're great at something, the economic accoutrements of being great at something, the prestige, the relevance, the camaraderie, the self-worth of being great will make you passionate about whatever it is. Here's the problem with believing you should follow your passion. Work is hard, and when you run into obstacles and you face injustice, which is a common guaranteed attribute of the workplace, injustice, you'll start thinking, I'm not loving this. This is upsetting and hard. It must not be my passion. That is not the right litmus test. Do your passions on weekend. Be a DJ. Jay-Z followed his passion and is a billionaire. Again, assume you are not Jay-Z.
Follow your passion. Scott Galloway points out less than 1% of us get rich by following our passion. Most rich people's passion is getting rich, so they can afford to follow their real passion. For the rest of us, we want a decent workplace, and then we have to find something in our job that gives us joy, and then take about as much joy as we can out of that. Work hard. That doesn't always mean hard work at any of your jobs. Maine, Care, Hope, or Ghost. I remember early in my work life, the popular line was, "Hey, don't work harder, work smarter." Great, thanks. That's like the line, "Don't worry, be happy." Sounds good, but it's not actual advice. Nothing I can really use there. How about work smarter and be happy? Okay, seems though that that's a little more complicated than we all thought. And don't whistle while you work, it annoys others.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.